Well, if you look to the past as we conceive of it, rightly or wrongly, what were the basic things that were necessary to bring life to its level of whatever sophistication it has at present? Well, in the story, God created, and then he breathed into breathing. Breathing, therefore, might be something foundational that leads to man's development. Yes, says the man in the street, you try not breathing and you're dead pretty quickly. And therefore we sort of might jump the gun and say, does that mean there might be a good way of breathing, and a bad way of breathing is, of course, one that constitutes not breathing at all? For instance, don't take a deep breath and hold it indefinitely. That doesn't bring life, that just brings suffocation. And indeed, you'll find it fortuitously extremely difficult to try and pull off. A person who tries to kill himself by not breathing as an act of will, as opposed to jumping off the pier, of course, if he can't swim, dies pretty quickly. So, you can see from that you might get a system of breathing that is particularly valuable as regards man's development. I'm talking about Kriya, aren't I? What I see, my simplistic Kriya, which is simply triangular breathing. Breathing in to say the count of 6 or 7, hold for that number, and breathe out accordingly, and on to the next breath. Full deep breaths, bottom of the lungs first. Imagine it filling the bottom of the lungs and up to the top, and then emptying from the top down. And full, deep, wholesome breaths. Perhaps that leads to something of our development through the ages. That it's a practice that has the best possible form of breathing, as opposed to the least possible form, which might suffocate us slowly to death. And we say, oh, you want to get out in the fresh air, man, and get some exercise. Hey, open the windows, for goodness sake, you need air. And you might need to get rid of the pollution that's in the air that you're now slowly suffocating in with the windows shut. You know, I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? Mum was hopefully telling you that, and Dad, from the beginning. And schools used to. I mean, the window would be open and you'd be freezing to death because the heating was inadequate. And, well, I'm talking about near Victorian schools, aren't I, of my youth. I was born in 1947 in England, and went to a state school. And we need to eat, don't we? And the food in state schools, like state hospitals, was appallingly bad. I lived in hospital for 1.5 years as a very young child. And the meals were appalling, were awful. You know, I longed for the meals of something better that I'd had experience in fostering and even with Mum for a little while. In life, my very young life. So you get a science of food develop. Some food's better than others, you know. Stuffing in bread and chips doesn't seem to bring fullness of life after a few years. Brings fullness of body instead. Not a fullness you appreciate too much either. So we start to have a theory of how we should be eating. Incredibly providential, isn't it? What else is basic to us? Well, our scientific community surmises that at one time man was crawling around all fours, that he's developed from some four-legged creature at least. And it's just that the front legs have become rather more dexterous and useful over time. Well, let's go back to what is the best way of motivation to practice? Is it our current state of sitting in the car and in the couch? Or is it walking? Is it walking or is it running? Or is it just foraging, wandering around? Is it walking on all fours? Was there a coordination and a mind development that was very providential for the future? If it were so, our walking on all fours? Well, try it and see. Does walking on all fours, on hands and knees, for instance, or hands and feet only, sort of childlike playing, walking, just your hands and your feet on the floor, moving forwards, a bit like a horse might walk slowly, lift, say, the right hand first, and then the left leg, and it goes on the floor, and the left leg, I don't know what the order is, but you go and crawl on the ground, just on your hands and knees, and see what the order is, which hand and which leg then follows, hand or leg, and then which hand or leg follows, and so on. And what does crawling on your knees do for your strengthening of wrist, shaping of spine, coordination? Is this a good, mild exercise? And then come up off your knees so that you're just on 2 feet and 2 hands, walking across the room on all fours. And do that for a few minutes a day. That greatly strengthens your wrists and shoulders. And is it good for the back? If you overdo it straight off, it won't be, of course. But come round to it, a few minutes a day, and then increasing a few minutes. And then can you move backwards doing such? Well, no, the answer is to begin with, and then, oh, well, sort of. And then, well, yeah, I possibly can. Is this beneficial? I came across an amazing young lady on YouTube who was advocating just this sort of exercise. And then she said, now try moving sideways, and she demonstrates it, so she's, oh, that's right, and then she's arched the other way. That was very strange, moving sideways. I mean, I must find the reference for the, I don't mean she's got it all right, and she could be doing some exercises that are not beneficial, but overall she's gained much. And you just listen to the person and you think, this is a very definite and positive and alive person. I don't mean she's some spiritual great, but I do mean she looks extremely fit and healthy. And perhaps there's something in this that is of great benefit, therefore, to us all. And she feels that. And it's a free video. We're being blessed by her doing this. She's on the right path too, isn't she? Isn't that just simply lovely? Okay, well, there are many things like this. I've just talked about breathing and crawling on all fours. Standing straight with your back against a wall. You may realize how much you do not stand straight. And perhaps standing that straight is not good for the back. Well, you'll find out, and you'll find things that are helpful. Walking barefoot. We surmise that we were barefoot originally from a evolutionary sort of belief point of view. Is there something to be gained? Some weird people actually think that we gain power from the planet by standing on the grass barefoot. Walking on the ground, possibly not concrete because it's man-made, but it might chip the bones if you land too heavily on your heel, for instance. Don't run on concrete with bare feet. Not a good idea. Even if you land on the ball of the feet, which almost very few people seem to do effectively, perhaps you'll damage the bones there too. Concrete's not too natural. And variety in terrain that you're running on makes you extremely alert and aware of where your foot's landing and coordination of balance in accordance with every uniqueness of every step. How wonderful if we lived like that we met every variety and difficulty in life with the appropriate reaction for life and survival and balance and fullness of life. So, some barefoot walking might be helpful, not on thorns and where there are creatures that could sting you, of course. We learn by our experience. So be careful on what experience you throw yourself into. Be very sensitive to, is this blessing or not? Not, am I doing it and am I doing it more or not? But is it blessing or not to be done more or less accordingly? Taste and see. Same with the ultimate. People have believed in God for years. Well, some beliefs might be better than others. Which? And better in what way? That bring a more fullness of life and happiness and peace and joy and hope and vitality and creativity. The things that most people seem to want. Well, that's the way to go then, isn't it? Bless you. Bless you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.